So welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking about an overview of immigration updates from both England and from the US. We're joined by Rahul from Hudson McKenzie and also Marc Topoleski from Ellis Porter. I myself am with Ellis Porter, our UK office. So we're going to go over a brief overview of all the changes. We're going to touch on the temporary work permits, permanent residency. We're also going to go into some compliance issues, and then we're going to share some best practices with everyone as well. So Rahul, I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself and Hudson McKenzie, and then Marc, we can go over Ellis Porter as well.
Hello everyone, my name is Rahul Batra. I'm managing partner at Hudson McKenzie. We are a global immigration firm and we focus mainly on UK immigration inbound work, and we also coordinate work permit applications across the globe.
And Marc?
So I'm the managing attorney of Ellis Porter. Ellis Porter is a U.S. immigration law firm focused exclusively on practicing U.S. immigration. We have two offices in Metro Detroit, Michigan, in the United States, as well as one office in London, UK. Arvinder heads up our Ellis Porter UK office, but our office in the UK is focused on only providing U.S. immigration services to individuals in the UK. We do not provide UK immigration services, but we have about 60 immigration professionals focused exclusively on immigration, US immigration, and pretty much have experts in every area of US immigration law.
Great. So let's jump into some of the overview. From both the US and UK side, we've seen travel bans coming up. We've seen border restrictions. There's also been, in certain circumstances, automatic extensions and embassy and consulate closures. So in terms of the US side seeing travel bans, most people have probably heard about them in the news. Certainly travel from China and Iran were two of the earliest travel bans coming into the US. That was extended to the 26 countries that make up the Schengen area. And then very shortly after that, the UK and Ireland were also included in that travel ban coming into the US. There are exceptions available. So individuals that are US citizens are exempt, US lawful permanent residents are exempt, spouses of US citizens and lawful permanent residents are also exempt. There are certain other exceptions as well if you're in the military or you have a need in national interest. They are readily available on the USCIS website and Department of State website as well, if you did want to go in to look through those. Individuals who have traveled to any one of those countries in the past 14 days will not be allowed to enter, but if you fall into one of those exceptions and you're traveling into the US, you would be directed to one of 11 airports where you'd undergo a health screening prior to being actually admitted into the US itself. Rahul, are there any travel restrictions coming into the UK?
Well, the UK hasn't imposed any travel bans, but migrants are asked to self-isolate themselves if they come from infected countries, for example, Italy and Spain. So there's a cautious approach there, definitely, but there's no travel ban per se happening right now.
Okay, great. And Marc, let's quickly touch on some of the border restrictions. Obviously, the US shares border with Canada to its north and Mexico to the south. Are there any border restrictions that we should know about?
There are, and the U.S. approached it kind of an interesting way as far as how they define these border restrictions. So basically, the restrictions right now ban non-essential travel between the United States and Canada and between the United States and Mexico. And this was a joint agreement between the three countries. But the restriction essentially only defines what travel is non-essential. It does not clarify what travel is essential. But as far as non-essential, it defines as anything for tourism or any other recreational travel across the border, even something visiting family. All of those are considered non-essential and are not being allowed at the moment. However, essential travel continues to be permitted, and that would be anybody who's crossing the border to provide medical care. We sit here on the border of the U.S. and Canada, and there are a large number of Canadian nurses who live in Canada and commute to work in Detroit, every day, and those individuals are able to continue to come to their jobs, work in the United States. Anybody else who has a work visa, which would be the TN visa under NAFTA, is again also allowed to come into the United States to their jobs if their jobs are essential. And all the trade traffic that normally goes across these borders are also allowed to continue. So we've even seen they are allowing the processing of TN visas at the border, even while this restriction is in place, if you are applying for the first time or applying to renew a TN work visa for an essential job in the United States.
But I guess it really is key prior to leaving the US to process any TNs or trying to enter. You really should consider whether your position would be considered essential, because you may run into some issues at the border otherwise.
Absolutely.
And Rahul, how's border restrictions in the UK?
Well, again, the UK hasn't closed its borders, but the limited flights are operating right now, as other countries have introduced no foreigner policy. So non-essential travel obviously is not happening, as you can't leave your homes, but the borders are still open. And you must have recently read about 70,000 people coming from Europe to do fruit picking in the UK. So it's all happening, but obviously under very tight scrutiny.
Right. So let's move into extensions. So we know that there are certain extensions available. Rahul, I'm going to pass it over to you to discuss how the extension is looking in the UK.
Well, the UK has taken a stand that they would automatically grant extensions to people until 31st of May 2020, with a view to extend if need be, depending on when the lockdown gets over. So at the moment, anybody who's in the UK need not worry, if their visa expires. They're not termed as a long-term stay or an overstay in the country, and future applications will not be scrutinized on this basis.
Excellent. And Marc, how's the US approaching extensions?
Well, the U.S. did not grant that leniency, and I think that's that was a very strategically important thing for the government in the UK to do, but it's not something that was done here in the United States. So individuals who are here in the United States on a work visa still must extend their status if their status is expiring during the pandemic period, and there's no relaxation of those expiration deadlines. So if you're here on a work visa, even on a tourist visa, you need to take steps to extend that status. Otherwise, you would be considered out of status. Now, also where a lot of individuals normally might not actually file an extension with the U.S. Immigration Service in the United States, they might normally travel to a consulate and simply renew their visa and therefore extend their status upon re-entry to the United States using that new visa. But now with all the consulates and embassies around the world closed for visa services, that's very much not an option for most people. So if for individuals in the U.S., they have to take steps to extend their status, otherwise they risk being out of status. For individuals who are here under the visa waiver program, which allows individuals of certain countries to come into the United States for up to 90 days without a visa. If they are unable to leave and depart, there is a process called satisfactory departure, where they can go to an airport and let a government official know that they're not able to leave, they can't get a flight home, it's not safe to travel home, and they will extend that status. But for everybody else, those extensions have to be filed with USCIS in the United States. But keep in mind that once that extension is filed, for most temporary work visa statuses, your status will be extended for a period of up to 240 days, even beyond your expiration date while that extension is pending. So it remains very important to file extensions for your work visa status in the United States right now.
Right. And I think you gave a nice segue into talking about embassies and consulates. So we know as of late March, I think it was March 20th, the Department of State temporarily suspended all routine non-immigrant and immigrant visa services at all US embassies and consulates around the world. You can get exceptions for emergency services, but it's yet to be seen whether that would fall into the employment world. It's very unlikely that something from an employment perspective would be deemed an emergency, but you can always make that request. But like you said, Marc, I think it's really important that this doesn't prohibit anyone filing cases with USCIS, and it could be a good opportunity to put the groundwork in now if you're looking to hire individuals or maybe transfer individuals from your UK or other European offices to the US. You could file with USCIS and then wait for the US embassies and consulates to reopen to be able to go and apply for that visa. Rahul, over to you. In terms of embassies and consulates, how's the UK doing? Do they still have the consulates open?
Well, the UK has taken a similar stand as other countries, and all embassies and consulates are temporarily closed across the world. Likewise, all foreign embassies and consulates in the UK are closed too. But I'm seeing a trend right now of companies still applying for sponsor licensing, still issuing COSs for employees in the hope that when the restrictions are lifted, people will be able to travel. So immigration work is still going on. People are still filing for COS applications, but it's just a matter of time when the borders open and people can start traveling again. Right.
So it's a similar approach. And I presume then from your perspective as well, for any employers that may be looking to forecast in the future and may have ongoing projects into 2021, it still may be a good idea to use this time now to continue filing where possible.